The Dozen of Dismay. You are people of emotion. Not only do you experience a wide range of emotions, both good and bad, you experience emotion frequently. Your emotional output is heightened, intense, and superior to that of normal people. You allow emotions, i.e. emotional thinking, to govern you. You're very much in touch with them, and you invariably struggle to keep your emotions under control, masked and hidden. These qualities, which apply to the empath, the super empath, the contagion empath, and the codependent empath in increasing amounts, make you the ideal targets for us. This is for two reasons. The first, naturally, is because your copious emotional output amounts to delicious and potent fuel for us, our lifeblood. You are necessary to sustain our existence, for it is through you that we are able to gain that sense of existence, your fuel powering everything that we are, what we wish to portray, and that we wish to banish. Fuel is a very important factor, but it isn't the sole factor. An equal reason why we require individuals such as yourselves to operate through emotion, through emotional thinking, and in particular with regard to your role as the intimate partner primary source, is that your emotional thinking allows us to assert control over you. The assertion of this control allows us to draw that fuel from you, gain character traits and residual benefits. It maintains our sense of superiority. The ability to assert this control allows us to paralyze you and keep you where we want you. Thus the cycle continues until such time as we determine that it is appropriate to disengage from you or shelf you, for instance. By ensuring that we provoke you, and in turn increasing your emotional thinking, you are prevented from seeing the reality of what is happening to you. We ensure, by continuing to interact with you, that your decision-making is not born of cool, hard logic. This acts to prevent you from moving forward. You are prevented, by emotional thinking, from escaping from us. This is why so much of our manipulative behaviour is focused on provoking emotional responses from you, which in turn increases your emotional thinking. The emotion that you provide us as fuel. The spike in your emotional thinking makes it easier for us to control. We must control our environment if we are to succeed, if we are to thrive, if we are to survive, and this means controlling our appliances that operate within that environment, including you as one of those appliances. As with so much of the narcissistic entanglement, the preservation of an emotional state is achieved through steps which we take, but also as a consequence of traits which are particularly evident in you as compared to normal people. These empathic traits combine through our daily interactions. They permeate everything that we say and do. Our manipulation relies on those empathic traits existing so that we are then able to take action against you to gain fuel and control you. We capitalize on these traits that you have. This is done instinctively where lesser or mid-range, and is done consciously by the greater or the ultra. The effect of the combination of our behaviour and the existence of your emotional thinking and empathic traits means that there is an effective combination that results in your dismay and the emotional state and control that we crave in you. There are 12 of these interactions, 6 from our side and 6 from you. Number 1, generalizing. We use this manipulation to maintain control over you and belittle you. By generalizing, we make it sound as if we are the ones who can do no wrong, and you are the ones who are always in the wrong. Thus we will make comments such as, "You never tell me that you love me. I always am the one who has to sort things out. Everybody thinks that you are horrible to me. You never let me do what you want." By generalizing in such terms, by adopting a broad brush approach, and with such wide range and sweeping allegations, of course issued with total conviction, they impact upon you because they conflict with your truth-seeking trait. And therefore, that clash between us saying you always do this or you never do that offends your sense of truth and causes you to react. 2. Future prediction. You are apt to base what you think the future should be based on what has happened already. This invariably means that because you have experienced the joy and wonder of the golden period, that you expect that the relationship should continue in a similar vein in the future, and thus you have raised an ultimately realistic expectation by placing your hopes and decisions on the past rather than the present. Past transgressions. We rake up the past in order to suggest that you've done something wrong. If you have committed some wrong in the past, whether it is minor or major in nature, we are somehow always able to remember it, and we will always keep digging it up. This is done instinctively, lesser and mid-range, and is done actively and consciously by greater or ultra. We never bury anything dead. We also, of course, through our narcissistic perspective, invent past transgressions which we perceive you have committed. After all, you're not doing what we want, you're no longer idealized, and therefore you must have done something wrong. With the lesser or mid-range, they believe that this past transgression actually occurred. With the greater or with the ultra, we know that we're inventing it, but we simply don't care. Often, these inventions will be vague and amorphous in nature to provide us with more wriggle room. Black and white thinking. A dizzying and disorientating response to the perceived criticism which you hurl at us, thus challenging our control, so that you be the hero one moment and then zero the next. We never operate in grey when it comes to our view of you and other people. You're either white, with us, giving us control, or you're black, against us, threatening our control. Then you become white again, before becoming black once more, often in the space of minutes. And the inability to understand why this is happening and why it keeps fluctuating paralyzes you, causes you to respond in a manner which gives us fuel, and of course offends your sense of decency, consistency, and truth, causing a further reaction in you. Number 5, closed mind. We operate with a closed mind. We know best. We're haughty. We know the right things to do. We don't listen to anybody, least of all you, because you're a traitor, a moron, and a fool. This prevents us from dealing with your challenges to our control, and heads off any sensible and credible suggestions you may happen to make about a situation which might threaten our control. By believing that we know best, that we're always right and never wrong, we are able to assert control over you. Again, this offends your skill of being an excellent listener. You listen to us, why don't we listen to you? It also offends your truth-seeking trait, causing a reaction in you. Number 6, catastrophic thinking. You engage in this as a consequence of an inherent nature to be like this, but we engender and cultivate it through our conditioning of you. Since our responses when devaluing you are entirely disproportionate from your perspective, you then become used to the fact that when something goes wrong, it'll go very wrong indeed. This then causes you, over time, to assume the worst, which increases your anxiety and your emotional responses, causing you to pump out fuel and to be easier to control. 7, irrational fear. Again, as a consequence of mind games that we play with you, you find yourself second-guessing, questioning and obsessing over everything that is said and done, which results in you not applying logic, not going to the evidence, but instead being conditioned to acquire an irrational fear. You then find something to worry about in the slightest remark or expression because you're always having to try and work things out. Once upon a time, you never would have done this. You wouldn't have read anything into anything that was being said. But your entanglement with us causes this to happen, and with it, your emotion flows, and so does the fuel. 8, projection. We project repeatedly by accusing you of doing the very things that we are guilty of ourselves. Of course, lesser and mid-range can't see that they're doing it. Guilty and ultra know that we're doing it, but we don't care. This is a form of defense, but it also causes you to be put on the back foot, as you are forced to justify your own behavior. We nullify your threat to our control by pushing it back onto you. This offends your truth-seeking trait, and you find yourself bewildered to be accused of the act yourself. Your response is one of astonishment, amazement, upset, and annoyance. All good for the emotional quota. 9, blame shifting. Another stock behaviour of our kind, born out of our absolute need to reject any threat to our control through trying to pin culpability, responsibility, or accountability upon us. It's always somebody else's fault, invariably yours. This then allows us to castigate you and causes you to react in a similar way when we project, because once again it offends your empathic traits of decency, honesty, and truth seeker. 10. Never looking back. Driven by our narcissism, we are too busy driving forward to contemplate our navels and mull over events. There's no self-reflection. We don't operate in this manner, but you do. Your propensity to reflect, consider, assess, self-flagellate, beat yourself up, means that you end up dwelling on matters for far too long, and in so doing, you end up paralysing yourselves, and, of course, you end up thinking that you're the ones that are at fault, making you easier to control. 11. Mea culpa. Not only do we blame you for everything, you also engage in repeatedly blaming yourselves. Driven by your truth-seeker trait, you need to find answers to why things happen. And if we are blame-shifting and rejecting any suggestion that it's down to us, then you invariably have a habit of accepting that you must be at fault somehow. It gets worse. You don't just shrug and accept that you're to blame, you flagellate yourselves, beating yourself up, trying to figure out what it is that's wrong with you, spending time and energy working out why you are at fault, and invariably being driven to the wrong conclusion. 12. The fixer. Your empathic trait of the desire to heal and fix means that you want to fix everything, to heal and make good, and it means that you struggle to walk away readily from situations where you would do well to do so. Instead, you remain in the firing line and in the furnace, in the midst of battle, as the manipulations continue, held by the grip that your emotional thinking has on this empathic trait, causing you not to want to give up and do the right thing by imposing no contact and removing yourself from us. A dozen reasons. 6 from us, 6 from you. 12 acts and conditions which result in the exploitation of your empathic traits, the creation of an emotional output which gives us fuel, and the ability to continue to control you. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.